You know, there's someone who says that they don't like Dan Didio. I buy a lot of his crap. That probably doesn't help my argument. Hey, what's up, guys? Comic Book Bob here. Welcome back to the channel. And I wanted to talk briefly about the stuff that's been happening at DC. The recent reports of layoffs and possible even more of those coming. The restructuring of the company. And one of the big points of interest that have been coming out of this is the possibility of Dan Didio being removed. And I've heard some videos, I've seen some videos where people talk about why they're for it, people talk about why they're against it, and I kind of wanted to weigh in with my 2 cents. And before I did that, I wanted to show, I do buy a lot of DC stuff. Most of the time, though, I'm an art guy. So if there's a really big artist that I really like on it, even if the book isn't very good, which this book really isn't, I'll still buy it because I'm an artist, I'm an art guy. And Ken Rocafort is one of my favorite artists right now. And this is one of Dan Didio's books. This is the New Age of Heroes line that they basically put him in charge of, kind of as a consolation prize for them retconning New 52 out of existence. And I wanted to go into some of the reasons why a lot of people like myself just don't like Dan Didio on a creative level. As far as an administrative level, I don't really have a whole lot of knowledge or information about Didio. And I've gotten reports from some people saying that he's a really good guy as far as, as an executive is concerned. I'm talking about the Dan Didio, the creative side of him, and the damage that he seems to do. So, just to recap, in case you guys, nobody's aware of this, DC had a bunch of recent firings, and among them were a couple of people that were really, really important, people who've been there for a really long time. The 3 biggest names that came out of it were the VP in Sales Trade Marketing, John Cunningham, VP Consumer Marketing, Eddie Scanlon, and the big one that a lot of people are just like completely stunned by was Senior Vice President Art Director Mark Chiarello. I've heard a lot of people weigh in on that, and they're completely stunned by this. And this also led to some speculation that Dan Didio and Jim Lee were kind of on, their heads were kind of on the chopping block. And the further indication from several sources that have been unconfirmed that there are more firings and restructuring coming in the future. And I wanted to touch on the reason why so many people like myself don't like Dan Didio. And Dan Didio's been a pretty controversial guy for quite a while. And there's a pretty good reason as to why. Dan has made indications for a long time that he has a particular mindset on superheroes, especially superhero comics, and where he wants to take them, and it hasn't always resonated very well. And like myself, like I said, I don't have a problem with Dan on an executive level. I've read some stories where people have had some problems with him, and I'll go into that a little bit. My problem with him is more on a creative level. The effect that he has on the creative side of the books, the direction, the writing, with the direction that the characters go in, it's just not good to me. And in my defense, I wanted to touch on some of the things that he's done that have really gone over like a lead balloon. So one of the things that Dan Didio is like, one of the most infamous things he's done is that he actually, going into New 52, which was pretty much Dan Didio's baby, like he pretty much made the lion's share of the decisions editorially and creatively going through New 52. And one of the most notorious things about him is that he actually had a hit list. He actually had, and you can find pictures of this. I'll try to find it, and like I'll put it, up in the corner here or over there somewhere. And one of the things And there was a lot of stuff on that hit list that a lot of people were just like, "You got to be kidding me!" So this thing became kind of controversial. And one of the things that Dan Didio has said, so I'll go over the hit list in a little bit, but one of the things that he's said is that he doesn't believe heroes should be in healthy relationships. And that kind of flies in the face of a lot of people's opinions on what superhero comics are supposed to be about. He believes that the characters should constantly be in a state of struggling. The problem with that is that gets really, and that works for some characters, but man, it gets really depressing after a while, and that doesn't work with most characters. It's like Superman, nobody wants to see Superman depressed and moping around. I mean, just take a look at Bendis' current run for that and see how that has not resonated very well with a lot of fans. And to give you an idea, this is some of the stuff, the most infamous stuff that Dan Didio has done that a lot of people just don't like. And I'm going to start with Identity Crisis. And Identity Crisis was a big deal because a lot of stuff went down in that book that really bugged a lot of people. And the biggest one was the raping of Sue Dibney. And there have been reports, and I haven't been able to completely substantiate these reports, but supposedly the whole idea was Dan Didio's idea. That he literally, in the meeting, literally said, "We need a rape." And for those of you who don't know, Sue Dibney was the Elongated Man's wife, and she was kind of like the den mother of the Justice League. She was, all the way back to the Silver Age, she was a very much beloved side character. And in New 52, and in not New 52, but in Identity Crisis, Dr. Light literally rapes her. And he threatens to do this to a bunch of other people. So he's like, "I know how to hurt you guys now. I'm going to go after the people you love." And it was not something, and the whole rape thing went over like a lead balloon, almost as bad as what happened next, which was the way they killed Sue Dibney. They actually killed Sue Dibney. And she died by being burned to death. And they find her corpse. It was pretty grisly stuff. And it wasn't, like a lot of comic books, and like you see a lot of grisly stuff in them. Superhero comic books, not so much. This was pretty hardcore. So that was kind of the beginning of the hint of where Dan Didio was and what he does and things. So that brings me to the New 52. And New 52, man, I'm going to tell you what, the vast majority of it, most fans are going to tell you it was just bad. The direction it went, the way it handled the characters, it had a much darker slant to it. It was basically, if you want an idea of what the New 52 was like, look at the current DC movies. Justice League, Batman vs. Superman, this Man of Steel, it was very dark. But some of the most egregious things that he did was he erased Wally West. And Wally West, for a long time, that was everybody's Flash. For probably a couple generations, Wally West was everybody's Flash. And the New 52 just basically erased him from existence. Now, he got replaced later on by another character, but that didn't sit well with a lot of fans. And then, in addition to that, he also erased Bart Allen. For those of you who don't know, Bart Allen is Impulse, who also became Kid Flash later on, who was part of the Teen Titans, which I'll touch on the Teen Titans in a minute. That was another big deal. The other thing, the thing that most people have a problem with Didio, though, was his hang up with relationships. He doesn't like heroes in healthy relationships. So two of the biggest relationships that he erased, just completely erased them, was Green Arrow and Black Canary, and the biggest one was Superman and Lois Lane. He completely erased their marriage, their relationship, and that went over, you could about imagine. But even more importantly, getting back on Green Arrow, because the Green Arrow in the New 52 really, it wasn't Green Arrow. It was more like the Green Arrow from the TV show, which if most fans, you talk to most comic book fans, they'll tell you that's not really Green Arrow. That's Batman Light. Oliver has a very unique personality, And the version of him we got in New 52 was nothing like who he is. So that was another thing that people just didn't like. And then we get to the Teen Titans. He pretty much erased the Teen Titans. And the characters that he did bring back, most particularly the one that I despised the most, was what he did with Tim Drake. Tim that's my Robin. Okay, I don't get me wrong, I like Dick Grayson. I'm starting to get to the point where I don't hate Jason Todd, but Tim Drake was, in my opinion, he was the best Robin. And under Didio's run on New 52, Tim got reduced to this creepy, stalky, bland asshole. It's just a shadow of the former character, and he tried to fix it later on by bringing back some of the mainstays like Beast Boy and Starfire. It didn't really work out very well. And then, speaking of Starfire, what they did to Starfire in New 52 was just a travesty. Like, she went from this character who had a lot of depth, she had a lot of innocence to her. They literally turned her into a space hooker. I mean, and that's not an exaggeration. I'll put another graphic up here, a picture of what she looked like during that time period. It was very controversial. And it was one of the people like, I'm a red-blooded American guy, man. I like hot women as much as the next guy, but that I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And then there was all these character redesigns as well. Like, what he did, one of the big ones that just, like, literally, it came out, it was there for a few issues, and then it died, was the redesign for Lobo. Lobo got replaced by this Gen X looking tweener, and it was just stupid. But New 52, like I said, they literally had to create Rebirth to erase the bad taste that New 52 put in everybody's mouth. And Didio obviously was not happy with that, which is one of the reasons why I think they gave him the New Age of Heroes, which, by the way, all of those books have now been canceled. Every single one of them. Now, there were a couple of the books that came out of that, the New Age of Heroes, that weren't actually that bad. The Terrifics were pretty good. The Challengers of the Unknown was kind of interesting, but the vast majority of the books were pretty much like this one. They were pretty to look at. They had nice art. The characters were largely either knockoffs of somebody else or they were bland, and it just didn't resonate very well. So that was pretty much, creatively, on the creative end of things, as far as I'm concerned, my knowledge of why I didn't like Dan Didio. He just, whatever he like I said, he might be an okay executive. He's just not a very good creative person. He just, what he likes creatively just doesn't resonate with most people. Now, I did hear some stories about people who had issues with him on an editorial level. The most famous of those ones, I swear to God, my grammar sucks, was George Perez. And George Perez this was actually a quote from George Perez. He literally got so upset with them constantly telling him to rewrite something, and he would rewrite it, take it back to them, and they would change their mind and say, well, now we want this, and they didn't know what they wanted, is what it ended up being, because they didn't know where they wanted to take anything. And George Perez literally, at one point, this is a quote from him, he said basically he walked in and he dropped the script. He said, here, this is my script. If you change it, that's your prerogative. Don't tell me. Don't ask me to edit it. Don't ask me to change it, because I don't want to change anything that you're going to change again in case you disagree. And there have been other reports of things kind of like that happening. As far as those sources, though, you got to kind of take them with a grain of salt, because there are personalities that have a lot of controversy tied to them. Two of the ones that come to mind immediately are Mark Waid and Gail Simone, who, you may agree with them, you may disagree with them, but they have a history of basically creating drama. Although Gail Simone does have a little bit of a point where she was basically fired off of Backrow via email, and that's a pretty crappy way to do something. If you're going to fire someone, just tell them to their face. So in a nutshell, Dan Didio is a very divisive person, mostly because of his creative decisions. And because of that, like I said, I don't think they need to fire Dan Didio. I think they need to basically like, look, we hired you to be the executive producer. You're here to be the executive. You're here to run the business. Stop trying to inject yourself into everything creatively, because it's obvious from the track record of the past, he's just not very good at it. And they need to basically have a sit down with him and say, Larry, look, we don't want to fire you, but you're going to stop writing stuff. You're going to be the guy who runs the business. You're going to be Jerry Jones, okay? This is the same problem I have with Jerry, bringing a football analogy into this. It's the same problem I have with Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones is a great owner. He's a great owner of football teams. And an owner has a lot of responsibility. He's a great owner. He doesn't want to be remembered as an owner, though. He wants to be remembered as a great football mind, a great football genius. So because of that, he keeps injecting himself into that process. And he hamstrings the people that he puts in there to do that. Dan Didio is the Jerry Jones of comic books. He needs to do his job and stop trying to inject himself creatively into things, because the simple fact of the matter is the vast majority of fans just don't like it. And in a nutshell, that's where I stand on Dan Didio. So, maybe you agree with me, maybe you don't agree with me. If you do, if you don't, leave a comment in the comment section below. But that's how I feel about Dan Didio. I don't want him to be fired, but I want him to stop injecting himself into books creatively. So that's my stand. Yeah, I'm just going to end it here. That's my rant on Dan Didio. That's why I think he either needs to go or he needs to stop injecting himself creatively. If you like this video, as always, hit the thumbs up, hit the like button, subscribe, helps out. If you have any suggestions for other stories, if you have, you have a different opinion and you want to voice it, throw it down in the comments. But I will see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.